Great, thank you. It's great to be here today. As noted, my name is Leesa Cobb, and I work for the Port Orford Ocean Resource Team, which is a community-based fisheries project on the southern Oregon coast. Our program combines science, education, local knowledge, and conservation to help our community stay in the business of fishing. And today I'm going to be talking about how you take these big engineering projects, and Steve's was a fabulous example, but bring them down to the local level in our community. Do I have a slide?
Yeah, you just go on
This
the
one?
thing.
Got it. Oops. There's my town. Thank you. We got there to Port Orford, Oregon, just like that. So, essentially we're talking about today lots of big port areas, like we heard about, Miami from the senator. We heard about LA, lots of talk about Newport, Rhode Island. But what I want to talk about today is bringing this all conversation down about engineering projects down to a little town of Port Orford, Oregon, which is a population of 1,100. Port Orford is heavily dependent on commercial fishing for jobs. 30% of the people who work in our community, their jobs are connected to actually the fishing industry. In 2006, as part of our work, we adopted a stewardship area model for the Port Orford Community Stewardship Area that includes state and federal ocean jurisdictions and upland watersheds. The boundaries of this map represent the area we are taking responsibility for. It's the area we are stewarding for today and for future generations. So we frame our work around that. It is in the framework, this type of framework, that our organization both develops and tracks 21st century ocean initiatives. We understand that ocean uses have become more diverse, and we seek to understand where our place is for ocean access today, next year, and in 50 years from now. I am here today to talk about our coastal marine spatial planning project to find a place for wave energy in the Port Orford stewardship area. And coastal marine spatial planning was talked about both by Dawn and by Matt in the first panel when they were referring to very large-scale national policies around that and funding, and also just big place-based coastal marine spatial planning projects. A little bit of background about wave energy and what's happening in Oregon. Beginning in 2007, wave energy companies arrived in Oregon to lay claim to areas in a territorial sea to be used for wave energy sites. It was all new to Oregonians. It was an emerging industry in the U.S. Oregon wanted to really be a leader in this. Our state leaders quickly recognized the opportunity wave energy could bring to Oregon and took the position that within 300 miles, with our 300 miles of coastline that are characterized by powerful waves, Oregon is uniquely poised to fill the utility scale testing needs of the industry. Oregon has strong port infrastructure and available electrical grid capacity. And the proximity of manufacturing operations to the Oregon coast and well-developed transportation systems make it optimal for early-stage technology developers looking to test and develop in the same location, which was a real need in the wave energy world at that time. Very importantly, the Oregon's state renewable energy policies are strong and very friendly to clean technology and renewable energy. So they welcomed the companies to town. They said, really happy you're here, how can we help you get established? Well, of course, the first conversation was about where the sites would be, and the wave energy companies came in and began to apply for sites that they thought would work for them, and then everyone had to back off and say, how are we going to site these things around the state of Oregon territorial waters with input from all of the users. While the state was rolling out a public process to engage energy developers and coastal leaders, our organization began a 2-year extensive local process to find a place for wave energy in the Port Orford stewardship area, understanding that the state was on this parallel course and took several years to update their territorial sea plan, and ultimately did find, some areas, a total of 5 areas for wind and wave energy development in the territorial waters off the coast. But we started in our own community with working on coastal marine spatial planning. The primary goal of marine spatial planning is to set out a framework for sustainable marine development by promoting efficient use of space and by balancing economic, ecological, and social aspects. Marine spatial planning also specifically contributes to reaching environmental goals, such as protecting the marine ecosystems in which human activities take place and safeguarding marine biodiversity. Using marine spatial planning, multiple existing uses, for example, commercial fishing, recreation fishing, boating, subsistence uses, marine transportation, mining and oil and gas operations, and emerging uses such as offshore renewable energy and aquaculture are managed in a manner that reduces conflict and enhances compatibility among uses. MSP also provides for public access and increases certainty and predictability for economic investments, which is very important to note because these companies were talking about putting a lot of money into this place, but they recognize the risk of, essentially a lot of pressure being put on the state not to do it. Some examples of the principles of marine spatial planning are on this slide, but they include establishing clear goals and avenues for stakeholder and public participation, as you would think. The goals, schedule, and reasons for the planning process must be communicated publicly and include a clear map of the coastal marine spatial planning decision process and stakeholder input points. Roles for the regional planning body agencies, stakeholders, and the public must be clearly established. Inclusiveness and accessibility are critical. Having the meetings in Salem, where there's no ocean, and where none of the classic list of stakeholders lives, isn't acceptable. It really needs to be done at the ground. Stakeholder participation and representation includes a full range of interests in coastal and ocean planning. And barriers to participation are identified and addressed before and during convening the stakeholders so that you're aware of why people can't get to the table and you don't have the problem afterwards of people saying we couldn't get to the table. Most importantly, engagement and outreach. In our case, folks didn't even understand about wave energy, what the devices looked like, where they would be placed, how they would operate it, what it would mean to their access, if it would be completely prohibited, if there was anything you could do around them. So we had our work cut out for us to help people understand and then make some decisions. We used multiple strategies to form and engage stakeholders, including focus sessions, public meetings, mailings, newspaper articles, reports to public bodies like the City Council, and local organizations. We spoke to anyone who would stand still long enough to listen, including the Boy Scouts and the Veterans of Foreign Wars, which when we asked the Veterans of Foreign Wars if they wanted to hear about marine spatial planning and wave energy, they said, I don't know what you're talking about, but we're having lunch on Thursday. It's scalloped potatoes and green beans. Come on over. So we were like, I'm in. So we went where everybody was and talked to them. We recognized that the process had to be transparent and open, and information about the decision process and supporting information for the plan have to be publicly available for review and comment all during the process. Really importantly, decision makers had to be open to learning from stakeholders and take their ideas into consideration. And decision makers had to provide feedback about how they used the ideas that people presented and be accountable to how they used them. Instead of saying, yes, we got this comment, they needed to circle back and say why or if they did something about it. A few of the things that we learned through this effort, which was incredibly rewarding, took 2 full years, but we learned that fishermen do not want to give up even 1 square foot of fishing area. Big surprise. My husband's a fisherman, so I get that, but they're difficult to work with, but given the opportunity, they're very interested in trade-offs and are highly interested in the deals that can guarantee long-term access to prime fishing grounds if they give up a place that is not as important to them. So you can definitely make headway if you talk in terms of trade-offs about where these sites are going to be located. Fishermen understand the opportunity of marine spatial planning. They totally get it because it's transparent and inclusive. And it prevents deals from being made in places that fishermen don't have easy access to. For example, this isn't about the wave energy companies coming to an agency in Oregon and cutting a deal about where these sites are going to be. And that's very appealing to fishermen. They want to be a part of that whole process. It's also not about things happening at the legislative level without checking in at the local level with the people who are working on the ground. Other things we learned, you'll find that on the West Coast, small fishing communities have almost no ability to engage in ocean issues. Small towns face the ongoing challenge of just maintaining basic infrastructure like water and sewer, police, fire. They also cities don't feel as an entity, small cities, that they have a real ability to participate in decision making about the ocean, even though it's right out their front door. So you really have to go and talk to them and empower them about what their relationship is to the ocean and why they should get involved in these type of decisions about major engineering projects that are right out their front door. We also learned that a well-defined marine spatial planning process will help you reach decisions, and it did, about competing uses in the ocean. Common MSP principles are agreed upon and accepted in the US, Europe, and other countries. It's not something anybody's debating about how to do any longer. There are really good guidelines about how to work through it. It's an incredible great powerful planning tool to bring folks to the table to make decisions so that in the future we can have an orderly system in place to develop the ocean, which is really what we all want. No big surprises. We know, in conclusion, we know that new uses of the ocean are coming, that it may take some time to develop the technology, but it's best to prepare now. One note, last week, after many delays, Ocean Power Technologies announced that they have scrapped their plan to build the nation's first large-scale wave energy project off the Oregon coast, saying the costs were too high to make it work, which didn't surprise anybody that understood the cost of putting those things in. The much anticipated project would have placed a flotilla of 100 energy-producing buoys, each the size of a school bus, in the waves off the coast of Bruceport, Oregon. The project's developer, Ocean Power Technologies, surrendered its preliminary permit with the federal government, and that project is now gone. In other news, Oregon's Governor Kitzhaber announced in February that a wind energy farm near Coos Bay, Oregon, will be West Coast's first offshore site. Proponents say offshore wind and technology can bring clean, efficient electricity and create new jobs and stimulate the economy. So it's no wonder that Oregon is interested in these kind of projects. I really encourage you, if you're working on big engineering projects of any kind that are large scale, to consider this really important tool of marine spatial planning to help you work through where to site these things and engage the public. Thank you.
Thanks, Leesa.